so much for being on this episode of Indies Inside. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I would love to start with, like I do with everyone, just have you introduce yourself to the audience in case people do not know you, and tell a little bit about your story, how you came into your business and why you love what you do.
Yeah, so my business is kind of a combination. I'm an interior designer. I've been doing interior design for 15 years, and I also work in the realm of energy work with feng shui and being a Reiki master. So I incorporate a lot of energy work into the design. I'm constantly bridging the two of them. So when I am designing floor plans or materials and that sort of thing, I'm looking at the energy of everything and the way everything flows, and looking out for what we would call poison arrows in feng shui, which is just these sharp points, like beams above your head when you're sleeping, or sharp corners of furniture like coming at you as you're sleeping again, or like if I'm working with you in your study or your office, just making sure that it's all very copacetic. And then also like working with plants, making sure that there's no poison arrows there with like sharp leaves or cacti, that kind of thing, and putting them in the appropriate places. And then I also do a lot of space clearings in homes. So our homes really gather energy, especially in the walls and in corners. So I'll work with like realtors to clear out spaces, or just coming into a home before someone moves in and blessing it, and that sort of thing. That's more like in alignment with the interior design. And then I also host moon circles for people on a moon cycle basis. So new moon, full moon, where we get together and we create intentions and we work with the energies of the moon and the horoscope sign that it's in. And then I'm also in collaboration with an artist where we are creating our own oracle deck and also making products for energy work. So like candles and herbs for burning and creating sacred space, and incenses and all kinds of different things. So I'm kind of all over the place in that realm.
That's so cool. And I do want to mention, I have been to the moon circles, 2 of them now, and I love them.
No.
I think they're so much fun. And that's why I wanted to have you as a guest, because I just think what you're doing right now with everyone being inside, when you think that maybe you might not be able to do these types of gatherings and gather with other women, especially in that it's a very like sacred space, and you've been able to successfully create that for everyone, even though it's online. And I actually love it, because I may not be always able to attend in person for something like
Yeah,
that, and
sure.
I get to be with all this wonderful women.
I know it's really neat, and it's so cool that it's still able to be really intimate even though we're virtual. Which I wasn't sure how that was going to work out when we had to go in the virtual space versus our meetings, in person. Because even the meetings in person are so, those are so personal and so tight, and but it's been able to translate over, which has been really cool.
Yes, it's been absolutely wonderful. I plan to keep attending them. And we actually met through Level too. So I know that you're also doing a lot of great work with them,
Yeah.
doing a lot of great workshops and things. I think you just did a workshop last month, right?
Yeah, I've done a couple workshops through Level. One was how to feng shui or create, design your office holistically with feng shui and energy. And then the other one was working with the moon cycle to manifest in your business.
That's amazing to
Yeah.
be able to have that opportunity. I think what you're doing is so cool with the interior design and the energy work. And I'm sure
Thanks.
in these times it's been interesting just doing that from
Yeah.
afar.
Yeah.
So how have you adjusted to that to be able to help people still, even if you can't go see their physical space, right? You can't walk in and have the sage and the clearing ceremonies, which I love, but how have you been able to adjust to doing that from afar?
Yeah. So actually, I've been doing them virtually. I'm able to go into their spaces through meditation and just connecting with the space. I'll have them send me photos or videos of the home, what they're feeling, and then I just kind of go into a meditative state and I basically walk through the home And I'm also sending like guides or angels to the spaces to help with the cleansing and the clearing and just reading of the space. And then I'll pull cards like I normally do with all of my clearings, just to get more insight of what's happening there. And I'm still like lighting the candles here. I'm still burning herbs. I'll create an incense for the clearing. So there's still some very magical work that I would be doing in person, but I'm able to do it distantly. And I also work with Reiki on a distant level, so I'll send that to the home as well. It's been really interesting and crazy that I'm able to still connect with what's happening there. So I've done several virtual clearings. And then I'll also do readings virtually where I'm online on a Zoom call or whatever, and I'm pulling cards and I'm reading for the clients. And we're creating rituals and practices for them to really hone in on their intentions and what it is that they're working on.
That's great. Yeah, I think Reiki too is so interesting now with the being distance, because I'm certified in Reiki level 1, so I've done a little bit of it. I need to get back to it,
Yeah.
to be honest. But it's really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I know that I've even talked to other healers and energy workers who were like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I would never do a Reiki training that was on Zoom or from
Yeah.
afar, and now they're saying, oh, this actually really isn't so bad. I can do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually had one healer tell me she thinks that she's been even more effective on Zoom, which I think
Wow.
is really interesting. So it's really expanding everybody's horizons, I think.
Yeah. We're able to tap into people. Like I'm going to have a call right after this with a woman in Scotland.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So it's just neat to be able to be, it's so like, it just made the world so much smaller, and we have so much access to so much more, and Reiki and Feng Shui and all that's all energy. So it's like, of course it's going to work, in level. It's just like kind of opening up our eyes and giving us these experiences where otherwise you might have been intimidated or unsure and not even tried the risk of going there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really interesting time to experiment and play with that. And I'm wondering now too, for experimenting and playing with things, how has this time been for you, both as a business owner and then also as an individual? What have you
Yeah.
learned or discovered in this time?
For business, we were very fortunate because we have a large job. We're building a house in Encinitas, and we've been on the job for about a year and a half now, and it's just a large piece. So we're still in full swing. So construction is still going. I mean, of course, we have precautions. We have to wear masks, and people have to be, there's, all these regulations that we have to follow, but it's full blown, and we're still able to get on site, check out what's going on with the the electrical, the plumbing, making sure that everything's in order. And then just our vendors are working with us on appointment basis. So we're connecting with them, letting them know what it is that we need to source. And then they're partnering with us, picking tile selections, flooring, backsplash, like all the materials that we need. And then we kind of go by the shop, and, we're in full gear, and we're picking stuff. And then also they're like having stuff set out. And then we just kind of swing by, pick up what we need. And then we go to the job site and share with the client. And then we're also working on Zoom with we're creating a theater down in the basement, and the seats are actually coming from Belgium. So we were working with somebody out there designing the theater, and we're able, all of that's 3D rendering and virtual anyway. So we're just sharing our screens and like moving things around and designing in that way. And then they'll mail us leather samples and thread samples, and then we're selecting from there and mailing them back. So it's like, so for us, it hasn't really stopped in that way. We're still very involved. And then we have a kitchen remodel and a bath remodel that we're working on. And again, it's just a lot of this is virtual and dropping off samples and, doing that kind of thing. So we're just being very creative in that realm. The thing that's difficult is like, I have two boys that are 7 and 9. And so we're homeschooling and they're doing their schoolwork, partly on the computer, well, mostly on the computer, but they'll have their Zoom calls twice a week. And so I'm making sure that they're in alignment. And then my business partner, he's at the studio, which is in a separate space at his home. So he's working in the studio. I'm working from my home, and we're also working from Zoom. I'm drawing, on AutoCAD, doing the plans while he's watching my screen. So we're like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
move that there, move it down 6 inches. So it's like we were sitting next to each other. But we're not like in the same room together unless, we have to go out on an appointment or something. So we're also like working distantly, but together at the same time so that I can be at home with the boys, and navigating through that.
My goodness. Yeah, I'm sure that has been quite the challenge. I've heard from all my friends who are parents just trying to, the whole online schooling thing is just a whole new challenge that
Yeah.
nobody saw coming. And it's hard to
Yep.
keep even the best kids. That's what one of my friends said. She's like, even your most well behaved child is so hard to keep them focused.
Come on there. Yeah, it's my oldest. He's so good. And he just automatically gets on. Like he eats his breakfast, he gets dressed, and he just gets on. I don't have to ask him to do anything. But he like does the bare minimum. And I'm like, what about all this extra credit? He's like, I'm dead. I'm like, I know, but you like flew through it. We need to challenge like
Yeah,
your
keep
brain.
it.
Let's keep going because this is really, you need to be challenged. So that's the challenge with me, is like getting him to like go beyond what he's just the minimum. And then the little one he just needs his handheld, he just wants to be next to him while he's doing his work, even though he knows how to do it, but it's like
Yes,
the support.
yeah. That I've heard very similar things from all my friends who have, yeah, young ones who are about the same age actually. That we see them pop in on our work calls. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny. Like we'll just be talking, and then you'll see her look off, and she'll be like, I know, and you know exactly
Yeah.
what's happening.
Gosh. Yes.
That's why we say at work, like all of our calls are dog and kid and all pets friendly. So
Yeah. Everything friendly.
we're all
And
learning a new
it's
way.
yeah, it's been neat because then we kind of get to see like all these different assets and sides and of people, and with their kids, and everyone being so. I feel like I have so much more support with everyone being understanding, and like even our vendors, like we're designing closets and they're at home with their kids, and and like our shade people or whoever, like everyone's got kids, and it's like, oh my gosh, and you just like kind of bond with everybody at a whole other level and just have so much compassion for what's happening, and the juggling of childcare to meet on site or whatever.
Right. It does. It really brings together like a sense of camaraderie. And I even think of doing fitness classes on Zoom now, and I see my instructor there, and her little one is running in and maybe half doing the exercises with her, which I actually love. I think it's really
Yeah,
cute. I feel like I know her better. I feel like we're all little like community getting through this together.
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's why the moon circles work and everything, as we were talking about,
Mhm.
because it does feel this sense of we're all kind of here together and we're gonna make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious to know what kind of, especially in the space that you work in, everybody's stuck inside so much
Yeah.
more, and we're all making our home offices work for us and doing the best we can, and now you have couples too, and they're both trying to work at home, and maybe there's only one office, and it's a lot to deal with. So I'm curious what you've been recommending, like general tips to folks as they learn to keep their space now, because they're in it all the time, just keep
Mhm.
it energetically flowing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Feeling comfortable and cozy, right?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, I'm just kind of sharing with them like how to clear the space on their own without necessarily having me come out. And the biggest thing that I found is just opening all the doors, opening all the windows, just letting all the stagnant air kind of blow out. And then just setting the intention of what it is that we're wanting to bring in. The other thing is like opening up all the windows, making things really bright. People are really clearing out like what all the things that they're looking at that's not making them happy. So like creating these beautiful spaces, people are just purging and really paying attention to the things that matter to them. I think it's a lot of that. And then yeah, creating these cozy little vignettes and spaces that they're happy to be in. And I've got clients where they're like just burning like a ton of incense and setting the mood and lighting a candle and like being with a favorite crystal, or like just creating these little sacred pockets, so that when they're in those spaces, they feel good and they feel supported. And
Yeah, that's a great point because I think even too of with everything melding together so much now, family, work,
Mhm.
that transitioning too between the two and that energy that hangs around. I even think about with myself, like the energy after hanging around after work, and now you're trying to switch gears, and it's challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, like I'm constantly going into the garden, having to take the walks, like taking the breaks. And same thing with the kids. Like when I see that they're frustrated, it's like, okay, we're taking a break. We're going to go for a walk, or we're going to go outside. We're going to water the garden. We're going to look for bugs. We're going to, so it's like shifting that mode, or we're going to go color.
Yeah, yeah, it's opening up to the creative sides for sure. I
Yeah.
I think it's interesting at all these new things people are trying, and I'm sure you had so many plans for 2020, like we all did.
Everybody.
We all thought I'm going to do this, and these are my goals. This is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. How have you had to shift or try new things in the light of the last few months, everything that's been going on? What areas have you found yourself, experimenting and pivoting? Really,
Yeah. So I think like the biggest thing I don't even remember like what my intentions were set for 2020. I feel like it was such a long
so
time ago.
long.
Just shifted like crazy. So, I mean, my workflow was great. The things with Level, I think that was a big thing because I had already set up, like, I was like gung ho on getting all these speakers, and I had our event space planned out for the entire year. I had our sponsors set up. I had, all this stuff going, and I'm very, I love in-person events, and I love meeting people in person and connecting in that way. I had like stuff set up for like magazine publications, and then the magazine went out. So it was like I had all these things that were, ready to go. And in the back of all of this, our collaboration with me and Carly, we're creating an oracle deck, and that was like what our goal has been. Like not just this year; it's probably gonna be a couple year project. But since all this has happened, I got the bug for like making like these moon boxes, these altar boxes that have, candles and crystals, and incorporating original art with Carly, and like having tea made, because we would have our circles at a tea shop, and Amy would make the tea for that shop. And now she's making just very limited batches for our boxes. So now Carly and I are like full blown into the boxes, and now we're getting the website up, and we're getting like, so it just kind of sped up what we were already planning, and then just shifted a little bit because now we're kind of focused on these boxes and creating these bandanas and altar cloths with her original art and having those screen printed. So we're like doing all the stuff that we wanted to do with the Oracle deck, on the other end of like all this merchandising, but we're doing it kind of now, and then we're creating the Oracle deck like kind of on the back. I don't know. It's like we've just shifted focus. Yeah, we've kind of flipped it.
Yeah. That's
So,
cool
to
though.
get
And
now versus like having to wait. We were just
yeah.
like, well, let's do it. Like let's get, like, people are needing this stuff now, and they're wanting to get connected. And so yeah, and then I'm just like shifting my garage into a little like witchy hut where I'm like making stuff, and then we're looking at property to like do stuff out, distant, like in the wilderness, like, like in the woods or in the desert, like this whole distant thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels really good for just like being with myself and like creating something. And I think it would be really beautiful for people to be able to go out there and also experience nature. And just like me being in my garden has just been a huge, huge help for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I am so excited about the Oracle deck and all the stuff for the moon circles. I saw everybody commenting when you announced that you were working on all that. Everyone was so excited, like, yes, yes. I really do think it's something people need right now. And it's kind of like good timing in a way that, you found the perfect time to deliver these things to people. And
Mm-hmm.
and we're all very excited.
Aw, thanks. Yeah. It's been like when Carly and I met, I mean, we connected instantly. And then I remember we both like had this idea at the same time, and we're like, oh my God, I've been thinking about that. Like, so Cool.
Yeah. And I love that you're able to try all of these different things. You have different projects and different streams going. You've got the interior design, you've got the energy work, you're finding ways for that to meld. And then you also have this piece starting up. You've got level as well. So
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of different things, but they're all, I think, melding with each other very, very well. And you're able to manage this amidst a quarantine.
Right. And I'm rebranding at the same time. So it's like trying to shift all of that stuff. But I think it's a good time to like it's like realigning, readjusting, like really connecting with what's making me happy and like what's giving me life and like what's inspiring me. And I think it's also helping with other people and getting them in their space too. And I think everyone's looking at their spaces because we're stuck inside. Like what do I need to shift?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
both physically and energetically,
Yeah.
for sure. I
Yeah.
find that all the time with myself that, and now it's just becoming all the more obvious. So in a way, this has drawn out things sooner than maybe we would have overlooked them for quite some time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know too, as we talk about what people can do with their spaces, the advice you have for individuals. When you think of your fellow small business owners, indie creators, people who are creating their own art as well, what advice do you have for them during this time? As you're someone who has been able to navigate all of these different things and experiment and play, and maybe some others are feeling a little stuck. So, what would you advise to your fellow creators?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about following what is inspiring to you and just trying things out and experimenting. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I remember when we first went into quarantine, I got inspired to do this month long workshop for people, which was great, like creating sacred space in their home. But then I found that I was like burning myself out. I was doing too much. So also being able to take a break and just being patient with yourself and knowing that you just have to try different things and see what fits and what works. And if it doesn't work or it's not filling you up, it's okay. Like you can quit. You don't have to keep going. And just giving yourself some grace and some ease. And maybe you're not inspired, and that's totally cool too. So just like really take care of yourself and what's going to give you pleasure. And like, if it's just the fact that you're going to get up in the morning and you're going to brush your teeth and you're going to get dressed and that's accomplishment, like being cool with that, like that's fine, that's enough. Like just really readjusting like what success is and like um and not being hard on yourself because it's such a crazy crazy time, and just giving yourself, like I said, giving yourself some grace and some ease and just knowing that what you're doing is enough, and not comparing yourself to other people. That's the other thing, is really just sticking on your path and just knowing what's right for you is right for you. And that whole comparison game, I feel, is really crazy. And then you kind of go into a black hole and a spiral of you know I don't know, just blackness. And I find myself I'll find myself like going down that hole. And it's like, whoa, like readjust, like come out of it, sit with what you're doing, why you like what you're doing, and then go in that direction. But
Absolutely. Yes. I'm really glad you said that, because I think a lot of us are feeling a mix of that, trying to do all the different things and then also simultaneously feeling guilty when you start to burn out or lose interest in something, or you feel confused about what you're still interested
yeah,
in. I think that's a common feeling. And I personally, I've said to people I've interviewed on this show before, it was so exciting in the beginning to see all these different, workshops coming out and all these different Zoom calls. I'm like, yes, I want to do that. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. All of a sudden you're like, I've triple booked myself. I'm overwhelmed with different
yeah,
workshops and things I'm trying to learn. Like,
yeah. It's too much. You could get like zoom out, burnout. It's
yes.
just, yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's great that all these things are happening, but at the same time, then you're gonna have to start like shifting through and then just figuring out like what's in more in alignment. Like, am I doing it because I feel like I need to do it, or am I doing it because I want to?
Absolutely. Yes. That's 100%. I have to have that conversation with myself all the time.
Yeah. Like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the reason behind it? Like, is it because everyone else is and I feel like I should be doing it? Does it really make me happy? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a challenge. It's a good thing, but as all things, there's the light and the dark side of it, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And learning to balance that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, as we all, look at our favorite small businesses and wanting to support them, and we want to see everybody thrive, right? We don't want to,
Sure.
somebody had a good point about, okay, well, who you spend dollars with right now is voting for who you still want to see around later,
Right.
right? And I am 100% on board with that. So I've been trying my best to contribute where I can. I'm curious to know if you have tips or advice that what are the best ways that we can support each other right now as small business owners and creatives?
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious one is just by purchasing, from people that are here locally. Like when we're, sourcing certain products or things, I'm kind of looking in my circle first to see who can provide me with like fabric or whatever it is versus going to like a larger company or going outside of my local community. The other thing is you don't have to spend money to support them. You could share, their Instagram, their offerings like on your own social platforms and, just getting the word out for them and being an ambassador for that company and the people that you love is huge. And also just supporting them, even just a comment or like, if you think of them, like just connecting with them saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, like, what's going on? Like, what can I share? How can I support you in that sort of way? And it doesn't have to be monetary if you're not in that position.
Right, exactly. I've been trying my best, I know, to make sure I like and comment on everything. And I'm glad
Hmm.
you brought up social media too, because that reminds me of something I'd wanted to ask you earlier along the lines of having to pivot with your business plans and goals for 2020. I'm
Yeah.
sure the challenge of now social media, everybody had a calendar planned or they kind of had a general sense of what they were going to talk about and then everything shifted and now you had to rethink that messaging. So have you had to pivot at all in any way with your messaging, especially on social media? Have you found any challenges or perhaps
Uh,
new cool things that you've tried?
what have I done? With my social, I'm very bad at planning. So I'm always just like whatever at the moment. And I just share at that
I'm
time.
the
So
same
that,
way.
that hasn't really shifted too much. Although I feel like I should be sharing more. I should be doing more posts. And I just kind of get lazy or I just like get uninspired or I'm just hard on myself. I'm like, oh, I should have done that like this morning and I didn't do it. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Like it's constantly like this game that I play with myself. But
I'm guilty, 100% guilty of the same.
yeah, I think if I had a schedule, like I've been wanting to do a schedule. It just hasn't happened for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think another struggle too is a lot of people are posting and saying a lot of things. And sometimes it's that sense, sometimes we're like, well, am I adding to the noise? I
Yeah.
want to make sure that when I speak, I have something valuable to contribute, but that
Hmm.
goes against the whole algorithm thing. So
Yeah, it's really nice. But the one thing I have been doing is sharing my process when I'm making things. So like I've been
very
doing
cool.
videos of me creating the incense or wrapping the herb bundles or showing like the space before I'm doing the sacred craft or whatever. So I've been sharing more of that and I think people really enjoy it. Um,
Yes. I've been loving seeing videos of behind the scenes from people because it just shows it helps you get to know them better with that whole process. And you always wonder, so how do they make those? What's the thought process? How do they
yeah.
get into the creative space? And it's just been so fun. I personally I nerd out over stuff like that. I love
Awesome.
it. So keep them coming, please.
Okay, cool. We'll do more of that. And people just have been responding to it. So it's like, okay. And then I've also been getting people that want to just come and hang out and make stuff with me and like just work on the energy stuff, like just, volunteering and, just being in that space of creation.
Yes, yes. It's been so much fun to get into a more creative place during this time
Mhm.
that I don't know if, many of us otherwise would. We'd be like, I'm too busy, I'm going and doing all the things.
Yeah.
And now it's nice to be like, hey, I don't have that pressure anymore to go out and be doing all the things. I can play around.
Yeah, and for me, it's like a therapy, and I forgot that I used to love that. Like I love making stuff with my hands. I mean, that's what I did when I was a kid. I would just make stuff and craft like all day long, and that would just get me out of my physical space and into another world. And it's like now and same thing with like my garden. We created a garden, which I otherwise never would have done. It's been on my list, but it was like I don't have time for that. But now it's a place that I go every morning where I connect with the earth. I look at the plants, I look at the bugs. I'm like, like really in touch with all of it, and it feels good. And then I tell myself, and it's like, you know what, I'm spending, like, there's part of me that's like, oh my God, you're spending so much time on this. But then the other part's like, yeah, but this is the parts that are feeding me and making me grow and making me happy. And it's so much cheaper to do that and be happy than to like go to a therapy session, once a week or whatever. And then,
So true.
yeah.
That's a great point, because I was going to ask you about this, and I think you've touched on it already. But what do you hope people learn from this time? It sounds like you've been learning so much about getting in touch with nature in your space. What do you hope others learn?
Yeah, same thing, just like reconnecting with what's making you happy. I mean, you're in your homes like all these hours and just thinking about like, how am I going to be, what's going to fulfill, fill my cup, and what's going to make me inspired, and what little things. And for me, like even just on the weekends, we're just going out east, like going out to Julian, just taking drives and being out in the middle of nowhere for me has just been like, oh, just absolutely love it. And then I'm just falling more and more in love with my house. We're in East County, and before, like if you were to say, oh, you live in El Cajon, like it's always like a stigma, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was why we came out here, is because we have larger property where we
Mm-hmm.
have, the plants and the quiet, and and all of that stuff. And we've got like a beautiful plot where it's just like these giant, these trees, and we have chickens, and like, so like just connecting with them. And I'm not that far, I'm 15 minutes from downtown, so it's just like, oh my God, I'm just like falling in love with my space again, you know.
Mm. That's awesome. I have like kind of, I mean, I love my space, but I'm sort of having that opposite feeling. I think both my boyfriend and I are of, well, now we really want that house to own and have space. And
uh,
it's a really good point. Like sometimes I'm right in the city, so I've always lived no more like in downtown areas, but now I'm like, it'd be really nice during this time to have like a sacred space to step back.
yeah.
So I think that's our next move. I think that's what we're learning.
Yeah, you don't know until you get shifted and put into these positions, and then it's like, oh, and then just feeling grateful. And it's like, oh my God, like every morning, that's before I get out of the bed, I do my little grateful like list, or my rundown of all those things, and then I can get out and be in a good space.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm envious. One day I will have this my sacred space, right?
Yeah, you can make sacred space anywhere in a little corner. I'm turning my dark garage into a sacred space.
I love that. I love that. This right here has been my little realm, because I'm doing yoga teacher training too, and it's now all on Zoom,
Oh
right?
my God.
So this is simultaneously my office and where I do all my Indies Inside interviews. And then back here is a mat that is the size of a rug. So it's a yoga mat rug, so that
Yeah.
I have all the space for my weekend long trainings.
Yeah, and we're just creating spaces that are so interchangeable, and they just shift and move, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. And then everyone's probably sharing their space, and I feel
Yes.
more connected with people. It's like when you see people's intimate spaces, I mean, it tells a lot about them, and then having them share that with you is just so sacred. And I feel like that when I go visit my clients, that they're inviting me into a space that is, it's their inner world. Like our spaces are such reflections of what's happening within ourselves. So yeah, so I think we're just, you're getting closer to people on a level that you're not like necessarily communicating with words, but in another way.
Yes, it's so true. When I see people put up the fake Zoom backgrounds, I'm like, why? I
I
just,
want to hear home.
yeah, I don't need the fake background.
Yeah. It's just so cool. And then you like see like, oh my gosh, they're just like me, or like we're not all so like neat and tidy, and not everything's perfect. And it's that human part of all of us.
Yes. It's a great opportunity to really get to know each other at a whole new level.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. So, how we talked about how to support other businesses, but I always want to make sure that we get to this. How can we support you specifically right now? How could we, show our love?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like that social media, like following and commenting. And if you're able to support with purchasing like a moon kit, or if you want to bring magic into your home with, candles and that kind of thing, or even just coming to the moon circles. Right now, they've been free just because of this whole thing that we're going in, but I think we're going to go into donation space with that, and that's going to help our creating our website. And like for unseen portals is our tag is unseen and then underscore portals for Carly and I, and just growing that business and making that more aware, because we really want to bring, peace and just that like very spiritual, sacred connection, through cards or even just through nature. And Carly's amazing at creating art, and just, being a witness to her art, I think is really powerful and healing.
Yes, yes. I'm excited for the next moon circle. I want to get the kit this time. I'm really
Yeah.
excited.
Well, it's just fun to like work with something I mean, we don't need all these things to be magical and spiritual, but it's so neat to have something physical that you're what's that? Is it your right side of your brain, or that can touch on something that, yeah, it's here, it's physical, it's a real thing, and connecting to the other side of your brain where, like intuitively, the stuff. So it's just a beautiful bridge of that. And then working with tools helps you understand with your body when things are happening, like people get goosebumps, or, the hairs on the back of their neck stand up, or they get hot, or they get a flutter like in their stomach. So then they know when they're out and about, when something is happening, they get those sensations in their body, and your body becomes that pendulum, or that tool that tells you, when things are good or bad, or, when to follow your intuition. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think it is super important to practice with those things and learn the signs for yourself and what I've heard the term spirit dictionary, like what your spirit dictionary is,
Yeah.
what those sensations mean to you. I've been personally working on that, and that's, the moon circles and all these different, opportunities now on Zoom to learn all these things has been so immensely helpful.
Yeah. Wonderful. And like, I'm out with my design clients, and I remember was it a week ago, my client came up to the job site, and we were looking at all these tiles, and it was a lot, and there's a ton of people there. And she like came from out of a meeting, and she was so frazzled and just like, oh my God, like she's like, Rachel, I need Reiki, I need you to ground me. So I just went up to her, and I had nothing. I usually might have a fan or like all these things, and I was just able to get her grounded and in a position and back in her body, so that she could work on making decisions. So it was just like, sometimes things happen like without planning, and you have to know how to work with it. And like just having those tools and things and experiences from the past like really help in a pinch.
Yes, yes. And the physical items too, I'm very excited about, because even just watching you guys, I get, even just from watching the video, like I can feel the energy and the power, and it's like another part of you contributing your
Yeah.
own to that. So
And then, yeah, and having Carly and then Amy who makes the tea, it's just like magical potions that you're, putting into your body. And it's so beautiful. And she's so passionate about what she does. And it's just neat, like having these collaborations with people.
yes, collaborations. That's one of the things that I've been seeing coming out of this time that I just absolutely love. I love all of the indie business owners coming together and finding creative ways to help each other. And I see even like the San Diego Maid Factory doing like their raffle to support their artists who are there. Everybody's just coming together in a really wonderful and special way.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for doing your piece of that too.
Well, thank you for supporting.
Yes. So I like to close all of the interviews with, a very positive note. And we all acknowledge this is a challenging time for everybody. But in the midst of all this, what is bringing you joy right now?
Yeah. So I think for me right now, I kind of spoke about being in the garden, being outside, like taking care of something from a seed and growing it, and then sharing that with my boys and connecting with them on, these little simple things, and watering and taking care of something and being responsible, for our planet. And also just like everything, like a whole new lens has come on, and taking our walks around the block and picking up trash and even just connecting with my little chickens. I have these cute little chickens that, so it's these basic little things, but also, and the other thing I'm learning is like working with my hands again and making candles and rolling and playing with herbs. And like, I'm touching my hands because I can just feel it and it feels so good. It's like touching like nature and connecting. And then also just spending so much time with my family has been amazing, and being able to really see them grow and hug them and kiss them. And like, we're very touchy feely, cuddly people anyway, but having those moments where we can just hang out and not have to be rushed and like really just slowing down. So slow down, that's been really cool.
Yes, yes. I love all of those things so much that yeah, the opportunity to really slow down, I think is a great one for all of us.
Yeah.
It's just it makes you realize just how fast we were going before.
Mhm. Yeah, it was like lightning speed. Like I wouldn't even see my husband. I wouldn't see my kids. And it's like, oh, it's time to take baths. I'll read you a book real fast, and then you're down.
Yeah. It's amazing that now it's, oh wow, look what happens when we're all kind of in this together. And yes, there are challenges for sure in the beginning, I think, especially with all of us adjusting to it. But now I feel like, I don't really want to go back to seeing people like my loved ones' face, right?
Yeah, and being really conscious. Like our time is so valuable and so sacred that it's like now it's like really being conscious about who and what we're spending time on.
Absolutely. 100%. So I
Yeah.
know we've covered a lot of ground in here, but in case there's anything that you wanted to express that hasn't been expressed, anything that wasn't covered, is there anything else on your mind you want to share?
No, I think you pretty much touched on everything. It's like it was my whole, like basically every piece of my life right now is happening. And then also just being, the other thing that's coming up for me right now is my mom. She's been in the Philippines since the beginning of March, and she's been stuck. Her and my brother have been stuck out there
Oh man.
uh, with family. But our family is very poor, and it's a very third world country, and they've been like in this whole um what is quarantine thing in another country, and where they're not.
Wow.
Oh, it's like really crazy. And like we'll do like FaceTime or what is it, Facebook Messenger or whatever, and I'm
Yeah.
seeing like and they're living in this, and I'm like, oh my god, it just makes you so much more grateful. And then I start thinking about everyone else in every other country and what they're having to go through. And so it's just I'm just coming from a place of gratitude. And yeah, so it's really nuts. And she just got her clearance from the embassy with their medical clearance, so they're able to come back this week. So it's just
Oh
nuts.
wow.
Like, yeah, it's just like shifting of this perspective. And just knowing like, oh my god, it could be so much worse, and it could be worse for her or whatever. But yeah, just being in these places of gratitude and for what we have. And it just puts a whole new perspective for me. And I think her being there with my brother just really like put me like in a space of like not necessarily not being able to complain, but it's just like it could be like really gnarly.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's really good that now we're finding, that people can start to slowly make their way back. Because I had friends and coworkers who had people in other countries as well, and they're just starting to come back now. And so I see this sense of relief coming from
Yeah.
all these folks, like, oh, my loved ones are back and they can be here. And
Hmm.
I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
be so excited.
But we were still able to be connected because of the internet. It's just like, wow, it's just crazy that she's on the completely other side of the planet, and I'm able to still feel connected to her. And still support each other. And
Yeah, yeah. And thank goodness, yeah, for all of these technologies that sometimes are a rough thing for us to deal with, sometimes are invasive on our lives, but also
yeah.
in this time have really, really saved us in some ways.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like everything else, having that balance and knowing when you're overindulging and when it's not good for you, and then when it's a good time to have it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so, so much, Rachel, for being on the show. And I'm so excited that your mom is coming back, and I hope you're able to
thank
enjoy
you.
that time.
I know. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thanks so much for sharing all of this with us. And I will for sure share with everybody. It'll be in the lower thirds throughout the video and then also in the post so that you can support Rachel and go to the moon circles with all.
Yes, we'd love to have. They're open to everybody.
Yes. They're so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks you so much again, Rachel. And we will talk to you again hopefully soon on those moon circles.
Awesome. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.